Well, coming down rookie to royalty, we're currently sitting on top of the Champions League. Hopefully can manage to find our way into the round of 16 if we pick up a couple of wins here for the January transfer window as we take on Atletico Madrid away and PSG at home. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 90 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Benfica. I hope you're doing well and coming up today a little bit of a Champions League focus. First up we take on Atletico Madrid, who sit down in 17th with that one away from home against the always difficult Diego Simeone's men, and then we take on PSG, that one back at home. They've got Ange in charge a little bit there of a throwback to the Go to Ange challenge from my streaming days. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to those two games coming up in today's episode, but it comes off back yesterday's one where we actually did bounce back from our first defeat of the season, which came in a random cup competition. If you missed that episode where we did pick up wins, thankfully, over both Ajax and Sporting in the league, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Since then, I've played 5 games, and to be fair, it's not been nearly as eventful as it was off camera before yesterday's episode. First up, rotated there when we took on Famalicão in our first game in the League Cup group phase, and thankfully Grace Kabangu there popped up with a goal just past the hour mark to make sure we did pick up a 1-0 win. So no upset this time in the Cup. We should definitely now progress in that competition, just need to pick up a point, I believe, when we take on Oliveira do Hospital off the back of this PSG game, and that's got a 9-day gap before then, so really should be doing well in that game and progressing out of the group stage in that League Cup. And in the actual league itself, we've picked up a 3-0 win over Portimonense, then 5-0 over Arouca and 4-0 over Torrente, taking on a couple of pretty bad teams here in the League of Portugal. So it does mean currently we've got an 8-point lead. These days it's us who have played one more game though than the Sporting, so that could change, but in a strong position there in League of Portugal. And also we've played one Champions League game and we thumped Linfield. We're pretty close to a full rotation. 7 won a couple of doubles there to Kabangu, Malgalas, as well as Matsoso, as well as Trincao, who did open the scoring. So it does mean that we're still sitting on top here of the Champions League, joint with quite a few teams there in Chelsea and Liverpool, but that could definitely change today. We take on a couple of quite decent other teams. First up, Atletico Madrid. They're not doing super well down in 17th, but obviously one of the better teams over there in Spain. They've still got Diego Simeone in charge, despite the fact that we've made our way all the way through now to 2032. So this could be quite interesting away at the Estádio Metropolitano. So let's see here how we get on first up. In today's episode, of course, not as much pressure on these games as I thought there might be, seeing as we're still undefeated and yet dropping any points in this competition so far. A bit surprising considering that we've had to get past teams like Man City and Juventus. To be fair, we probably can afford to lose one of these 2 games in today's episode, but if we pick up 2 wins, it would actually probably seal our spot through to the round of 16 early, considering one of our last couple of games is against Derry City. Let's go find those guys all the way down in 31st. To be fair, not doing too bad considering they're just 1 spot below Celtic, and also join on points there with Juventus and Ajax. So to be fair, that's not too bad there for a club like Derry City, but really that's one that we should be winning. So imagine we're kind of sitting on 15 points anyway. Hopefully can at least win one of these 2 games in today's episode, and surely that would make sure that we'll be in the knockouts at the very least, and hopefully as well in the round of 16. But away from home, this is probably the trickier of the 2 games in today's episode, albeit PSG probably do have the strongest squad, and of course have got Ange in charge, who I think still quite good in game, despite the fact he got sacked from Spurs in real life because he actually won a trophy, which is still quite weird. But we'll see how they go this coming season with Thomas Frank in charge. To be fair, not too bad looking a job there in replacement for Spurs off the back of getting rid of Ange. But let's make our way here into the team sheets, and of course that Champions League music. Quite interesting formation here for Atletico Madrid, a 5-1-2-2, a very narrow formation outside those wing backs. It's going to be quite interesting to see here how we get on against this formation that Simeone is going with. In terms of us, it's our regular best 11 these days. Still got Silva in there over someone like Juan Perez, who kind of cost himself his spot on the first team, leading into yesterday's episode. And of course, Silva has been a big old threat for us so far from set pieces ever since we signed him. I believe it was from Atalanta. So let's hope that continues here away from home. We're in the all black. Of course, Atletico Madrid in the red and white stripes with the blue shorts and socks, and they're first on the ball here with a free kick inside 5 minutes. Cynthia will play it forward to Danilo Conor Gallagher, who is the captain after Julian Alvarez. A great early chance there for Atletico Madrid. Our defence, not too good early, but thankfully they put that one wide. So despite the fact here that they're playing narrow, they cut us apart there pretty easily, which is a bit disappointing without having to go too wide. So that's a little bit of a concern there, the first highlight that we do see in this game. But thankfully, it's still locked up at 0-0. If you offer me a draw, I'll probably take it, with this one being a tricky away debut for us. Earlier this season, we did beat Man City at the E-Hub. Nice work there from Eden Husick to beat his man. He squares it for Murtaz Piskunov, who can tap that one away, and we actually take a 1-0 lead. So we were quite lucky there to hold on and keep it at 0-0. And now we take a 1-0 lead with our first attack of the game. Nice work there from Fortea, that pass to Husick, quite important. And then he absolutely cooks there. That would be Danilo, and that allows him to square that ball nicely for Piskunov, who can just slot that one nearly into an open net. And then we praise at exactly the right time, because it looked like it might be a free kick for Atletico Madrid. So far, everything coming out Millhouse for us here in the Champions League this season. Let's see if that continues. There is a highlight, thankfully, on the ball deep inside our own half, though, and that's not a good idea there. We pump it clear. Did think there briefly that Timber might do something silly being an Arsenal player, but no, he has not, of course, in this save at Atletico Madrid. But that's some shocking defence there off that ball from Marquez, and Julian Alvarez will put that one away, quite similar to the goal that we scored down the other end. But that time, I think our defenders could have done a little bit better there from the ball from Marquez. Now, unfortunately, they make it 1-1 here just before half-time. Definitely there, that defender on the left-hand side from this angle, it's Rui Silva, one of the first mistakes he's made since coming to the club, it's fair to say. Could have put a block in on that ball, he doesn't, so Alvarez can tap that one home. So unfortunately, Rui Silva, a bit of a letdown there defensively. He now goes down to a 6.4 before halftime, and also Florentino Luis, a yellow card, which I do think means he'll actually be suspended for that PSG game, but obviously going to take him off there for Franco Devia. And also, we'll bring on here our young centre-back and Magalhaes for Rui Silva, whose era did lead to that goal that we did concede. So it's 1-1 here at halftime. As I said before we scored that first goal, honestly, a draw wouldn't be too bad here from an away trip in the Champions League, considering the strength of opposition we're taking on here with this Benfica team this season. But obviously, off the back of making it 1-0 would be slightly disappointing, but hopefully a chance for us here nice and early in the second half from a free kick. Cohen Morty will put that over the top, just a little bit here of aerial ping pong. Unfortunately, don't keep it initially, but Kawamori will get that ball back to us, and for some reason off the back of that block on his shot, Piskunov passes that one backwards, and the highlight, it comes to an end. So some interesting stuff there from our Ukrainian striker, who of course did score that first goal, but not too sure about that back pass. And now throw in, we give the ball there straight to Atletico Madrid, but thankfully Magalhaes there with some nice work, and now Kawamori does get in behind yet again, but unfortunately there, the Atletico Madrid goalkeeper, to be fair, is one of the better ones in the save in terms of the world in that position, comes up with a decent save to make sure it is still 1-1, and unfortunately can't quite do anything there from the corner that does come from it. And now Kalafatoglu is going pretty poorly in this one on a 6.4, and also at right back for Taya, a bit there on a 6.5. So a couple of changes here probably as well, as Martinez can make their way onto the field with just over a half hour left. But we're creating chances here to try and grab our lead back and make it 2-1. But unfortunately, just not quite taken, and that could prove costly away from home. But hopefully can find a way to eventually break down this Atletico Madrid team one more time in the last 15 or so minutes of this game. And now for our final sub, it's Nadi, who drops down to a red heart there at left back. Fabio Ronaldo can come on for him. Look like there might be a highlight that was about to start. We cut it out. Now Robert Renan picks up a yellow card, but to be fair, won't be doing too much about that at this point with only 10 minutes left in this game. And unfortunately, there is a corner here to Atletico Madrid, and this time we can see from one. Samson Baidu pops up with his first goal of the season, and that could be costly. Might be time for us here to suffer our first defeat in the Champions League. They go near post. Now, unfortunately, it's Magalhaes, those centre-backs there down our left-hand side, just making a couple of mistakes today. Now, both him and Silva, to be fair, that one not quite as bad as what Silva did, but it means Atletico Madrid come from behind here and make it 2-1. So we'll go here more attacking with our rolls up tempo a bit wider as well, get the goalkeeper to distribute quickly, and see what that does in the last 5 minutes of this game. Can always go a bit more positive if we need to as we make our way into injury time. Also, actually, we'll chuck Castillejo as a centre mid on attack as well and see if we get one more chance here, try and pinch a point from the Estadio Metropolitano. Now it's time for us here go full out attack in terms of our mentality and up the tempo as well. Let's just see if that helps as well as going more expressive, but it doesn't look like we're going to turn this one around, unfortunately, off the back of those goals that we did concede from the one we scored through Piskunov. Good work there from Eden Husika. Unfortunately, our first defeat in the Champions League this season, only our second one of the season as a whole, and it comes there at Atletico Madrid. So that is a bit of a concern. To be fair, not too bad, because all the surprising wins we've picked up so far, in particular that one at the Etihad where we beat Man City by 1-0 a couple of episodes ago. But it does mean now we might fall off that top spot depending on some other results on this match day, as somehow Porto have beaten Liverpool, which does actually help us out. So for now, we do stay in top spot. We'll come back off the back of a league game, which I'm pretty sure is against the relegation position team. So fingers crossed we can beat those guys before we come back and take on Ange and PSG. And we are back about to play our last game here before this January transfer window opens in the Champions League, before then to take on União de Leiria, who of course were the team that beat Porto earlier this season. Honestly, not too sure how, because we thumped them here 4-0. Here's how it happened. Absolute bashing that we handed them there away from home on Sawa for double, and Kawamori and Kalafatoglu also popped up with goals. But that, a very dominant display. If you're a New Zealander, you'll be interested to see there that Sarpreet Singh is now at this club, so he might have helped them earlier this season pick up that win over Porto, which was quite useful, but thankfully bumped those guys, so it does mean still got a nice gap there on top of League of Portugal. But these days Sporting have played that game in hand, so the gap goes down to 5 points, but still in a strong position, especially because not too sure if Braga are serious contenders, and Porto are a full 17 points behind us, albeit with a game in hand, but still they're not nearly close enough at this stage of the season. So surely a two-horse race, and currently we're doing pretty well, having not lost the game there in the League of Portugal. But as I said yesterday, do take on both Porto and Sporting away from home, as well as Braga in that back half of the season. So maybe that's when we do start to drop some points in that competition. But also, there's been a bit of stuff happening in terms of the finances here at Benfica. To be fair, a little bit surprised it didn't happen earlier. Let's just try and find here the inbox item if we can, because it was a couple of days ago. And here is that item about 6 days ago. It came through in game, and unfortunately due to a worse than expected financial performance, not too sure how, it just came off the back of that first loss we suffered in the Champions League. So maybe that's what's been keeping the finances just going well enough. But they've reduced our transfer budget down to 575k, which is a little bit frustrating because we had about 48 million in there. So that is a big old reduction from Benfica. And also, they've taken our wage budget down by a good £110,000. I have actually adjusted it since then. It doesn't look so bad now, especially because we're getting some deals come through here with some players who have departed the club previously. One of those actually just off the back of that previous window closing. Jeremy Doku played some games for Real Madrid, and we got £12.5 million. To be fair, still might get some money coming to the club with all the players that have been sold, with some clauses there. But obviously, because of our bad financial situation here at the club, £127 million in debt, they took my £50 million transfer budget away. So that's not ideal. Maybe it's going to be a bit of a short stay here at Benfica if they continue to do us like that. You'll see it there. Next season, the minimum guaranteed budget is only £6 million. So a little bit frustrated there by that move. Thankfully, I've tried to renew some contracts for some players who are homegrown and going to leave the club at the end of the season. They actually want a pay decrease to stay at the club. So hopefully that'll help out there with our wage budget and maybe as well our transfer budget. But still, not ideal work there from the board. But I kind of understand. But obviously, that does mean that the stay at Benfica might be in jeopardy if some other big clubs do come after us. But before then, would be quite nice here to continue doing well in Champions League. Maybe we'll go quite deep in that, and that'll sort out that financial situation as we take on PSG. These days, a first versus second clash. We've dropped down to second as PSG have a slightly better goal differential. So a top of the table clash here in the Champions League. This time we're at home, as I mentioned. Ange Postecoglou these days is in charge of this PSG team, and it is a very strong team, probably the strongest, even better than likes of Juventus or Man City that we've taken on in the Champions League so far this season. Also, as well as Ange, a bit of Portuguese and Benfica flavour to this PSG team. Their captain is Shaun, who is a former Benfica man. He signed for them a good 9 years ago now in game and has played 270 games. And also, they have signed not too long ago, if we check out here on their recent team sheets, maybe actually their tactics, that's where we want to go for this one. Andreas Shoulder up as well. So a couple of former Benfica players here on the books of PSG, and hopefully they might be some secret agent men and we can pick up a win here and hold on to top spot in the Champions League. And surely if we do, we'll then make our way through to the knockout round at the very least, especially considering, as I said earlier, our last game is against Derry City. Before then, we've got Gladbach away, but still could put ourselves here in a good spot if we lose. That might make things a little bit more touchy if we then lose to Gladbach before that Derry City game. But a couple of players actually who are missing for this one. You'll see one there, Florentino Luis, as I mentioned in that first game. That yellow card does mean that he's suspended for this one. Have just offered him a new contract, so don't worry about that wanted sign there from Saudi Arabia, because he is the homegrown club player I wanted to keep hold of. But also, we've got one injury. Hayes' forward tail now. He's just come back, but he's a bit of a risk, so actually going to leave him out here for the second game of today's episode. So it does mean that we've got Devere in there in the deep lying playmaker role, and Peretti comes in at right back, and a little bit there of a shuffle up on our bench. Escudero will cover left back, and Renato can do a job at right back instead of Forte coming back from that little injury that he picked up around that last game we did play in Liga Portugal. But hopefully here can bounce back from that ever so slightly disappointing defeat at Atletico Madrid, not because it was a defeat, but we had that 1-0 lead. Did think that maybe we could hold on, but unfortunately our defence was not too hot. Rui Silva does still keep his spot. That defence, apart from that previous game that you saw, has been good. Both him and Robert Renan these days, they have been up a bit of a green link partnership as well, as the players down our right hand side for some reason hasn't quite happened down our left hand side yet, probably because Nadi does get quite injury prone, and Calafatoglou hasn't been natural in that position for all too long. But starting to build up the combos here with this Benfica team, let's see how we get on against this very, very strong 4-2-3-1 of PSG. So to be fair, the same formations. Ours might be a little bit more positive just because not sure if FM pushes their midfielders as forward with the AI managers as much as we do here with this Benfica team. But let's see how this one goes. Probably the strongest team we've taken on here so far in the save, at least in terms of since we've come to Benfica. Obviously took on some pretty big German clubs back at Jan Regensburg, but this Benfica team is a bit more talented and can usually match it here with the big guns in Europe so far. Let's hope that continues, despite that loss we just suffered to Atletico Madrid. But here PSG try and make their way out from back, but João Neves gets robbed there from Piskunov. Nice ball over the top there from Calafatoglou, who picks out Husik, who surely stayed on side. He didn't look in any danger of straying off, and indeed, that is one of the shorter VAR checks we see. Some nice work there from Piskunov. Calafatoglou, right place, right time to put that one over the top for Husik. Not too sure there what Donnarumma's doing. Some interesting goalkeeping, but thankfully Husik puts it away, and we make it 1-1 of our secret agent men, and João Neves gives us there a little bit of a helping hand. So thankfully, he won't get bashed up in the car park off the back of this game against his former club. So nice work there from one of our former players, and also a homegrown club player. So maybe he's helped us out there, seeing as his homegrown club. Not too sure if Shoulder Up will be quite so generous down that left-hand side that he is on. But unfortunately now, Ferran Torres does get in behind him. Florian Brun will put that away. There's no VAR check, so they've equalised straight away. So thankfully, João Neves there might have just got our hopes up before they start bashing us here on the park. Unfortunately, not too good a work there from Nadi. He loses track there of Ferran Torres, and from there our defence just gets caught out again, and Brun can put that one home. But that time, I think Nadi might be the one at fault. So unfortunately, they've made it 1-1, both teams so far, with just the one attack, and it's resulted in goals. So this could be a little bit of a fun game. Not too much defensing, as it's me versus Ange. It could be a little bit here of an attacking onslaught from both teams in this game, as now we make our way just shy of 20-minute mark. It's a highlight there in our favour of throwing down the right-hand side, and thankfully Husik does just keep hold of that ball. Calafatoglou's initial header, it comes off the woodwork, but comes back out to him oh so kindly. He puts it away, and we are back in front. So thankfully, that Neves helping hand earlier, it might still prove quite helpful as we go back in front. Nice work here from Husic. It's a wonderful ball in there for Kalafetoglu. Thankfully, his header just comes off the right angle of the post to come straight back out to him, and he can put that rebound away. So 2-1 up here with really every attack we've seen so far in this game. And now PSG with a set piece. We should be able here to clear it away, but unfortunately don't do it too well there through Kawamori. So PSG here back on the attack, shoulder up. We'll put that one into the mix. So thankfully, we somewhat deal with the danger, but again, Kawamori, not too good there of a clearing header. So PSG here back on the attack. They square that one for Florian Wirtz, but thankfully a good save that time from Andre Lunin to keep us in front. Kalafetoglu actually drops down there briefly to a red heart, so maybe need to keep an eye on that. He's been great so far with an assist as well as a goal, so really don't want to take him off. Castillejo on a yellow card. Definitely that might be a sub that we do make at halftime. Monsalvo, to be fair, scored a double in that league game I played before this one, so maybe he should have been starting there. Has been in some quite good form recently anyway, but that is a pretty decent first half. A little bit frustrated with the goal that we did concede, but thankfully we've scored with both the attacks that we've seen will make that sub, as we said, with Monsalvo coming on there for Castillejo and also not easing off tackles, but pretty happy with how that first half did go. And thankfully, Kalafetoglu is still on a decent yellow heart, so we'll be able to leave him out there for a little bit of the second half and hopefully can just grab one more goal and put these guys away. Piskunov going a bit fairly on a 6.5, and Kawamori also not going too much better. So we'll see how that goes. Those two positions essentially up front in the early stages of the second half. And thankfully, there might be something coming here in our favour. Got a throw in here inside of the final third. Nadi, he runs backwards, plays it back there to Rui Silva, who thankfully no mistakes in this game. And because of it, we are 2-1 up. Now Monsalvo, that was a good idea, but the ball wasn't quite directed too well. And now PSG with a chance here on the counter-attack, thankfully can just keep their shoulder up in check and then have to take their time here. But they eventually get Nuno Mendes to play a good ball over the top. But that is some nice work from Lunin coming up with the save. And also Renan might have been with the block well praised, but unfortunately it won't quite do anything yet. They have the corner, but Nuno Mendes, he can't quite pick anyone out. So thankfully, just holding on here to our 2-1 lead now. A couple of big chances, which PSG, they have squandered. And just about to make our way here to the hour mark and just past it now. We're going to make a change here. Kawamori has dropped down to a little bit of a deep yellow heart. Piskunov going fairly up front, so we'll shift him back to a shadow striker and see if De Rosa can go better up front instead of the Ukrainian. Of course, that's what we tried the first time that we used that shadow striker role, and indeed Piskunov can do a pretty good job there. As a highlight here has started before that sub, it does go through, and Nadi is making his way forward here down this left-hand side. Piskunov with a good hero, it forces a save there out of the PSG goalkeeper and Donnarumma, but that will do it for that highlight. And now Kalafetoglu has dropped down to a red heart, but before we can take him off here, he's on the ball from a front, and pretty similar situation to where it came before from the highlight. Now Paredes gets that ball back there from Husic. We float it far post into Rosa, who's just come on. We'll head that one home and make it 3-1. So thankfully, that change already has started to work. We'll bring on Martinez there for Kalafetoglu off the back of that goal being scored, and hopefully that's going to be a bit of a safe option now as we've made it 3-1. Still enough time left here for PSG to work their way back into this game, but hopefully, like was the case in the Anzac challenge back on Twitch now a year or so ago, it was a wee while, but we're cooking Ange here with a team that definitely should be better than the one that we're managing, albeit our one here a bit stronger than both St Mirren in Scotland compared to his Celtic and Montpellier compared to his PSG. And that save, for some reason, Ange always somehow ends up getting this PSG job, but thankfully we are still cooking him. Silva there tries to make it 4-1, but that header not directed too well. It loops over the bar, and also I think the goalkeeper probably had that one covered. So we're on the attack, but still it's only 3-1. But to be fair against PSG, that's not too bad. And again, we time a praise there at exactly the right moment. So it does mean that with now just under 10 minutes left, we hold on to our 3-1 lead. But seeing as it's PSG, we'll start to time waste here just a bit to make sure they don't find a way back into this game. Hopefully, because PSG, with some of those stacked players that they do have, that's something that they could do. A free kick there, and Devia can't quite get that one on target. It comes off the woodwork and off the back of that highlight. Now it's time for us here do some full-out time wasting, and also will take off Husik for Matsoso in this final stoppage, and also Nadi will bring on Renato for him. Those are two players who can get injury prone, and also put these wingbacks onto fullbacks instead and do that more time wasting stuff as we said we would. And hopefully that might be all she wrote for this game. It could be a big 3 points and hopefully take us a long way to making our way through the round of 16, considering one of our last 2 games is against Derry City. That should be a banker even if we rotate, but thankfully have picked up there a big win against PSG, helped out there a little bit for that first goal by, of course, Shaun, our former homegrown club lad here at Benfica. Thankfully, he still knows where his home is. He is going to be safe here after the matches played. No issues with him when he makes his way back to the hotel or, of course, his house still here in Benfica. But thankfully, the rest of our guys also did a good job off the back of that mistake that he made. De Rosa off the bench scoring as well as Kalafatoglu, who set up that first goal for Eden Husik. So we pick up there a good 3-1 win. It should mean we stay on top of the Champions League, and it looks like it might also potentially be enough for us to make our way through to that first knockout playoff round at the very least. So a nice bounce back win for us there in the Champions League, getting the job done over Ange's PSG 3-1 at home. You'll also notice there too that Porto are actually starting to find some form, so maybe they'll be a bit tricky in that back half of the season. To be fair, here in Portugal, we've now got some quite big gaps in between our games around Christmas time. So to be fair, probably not the right time for those guys to be finding form. But a 3-0 win over Bayern off the back of that previous win over Liverpool is starting to look quite handy. That Porto team, and here are the results from the Wednesday. Liverpool might be a little bit in the mud as well, losing 3-0 to Tottenham. But to be fair, Tottenham, they are, of course, the defending Champions League holders. Victor Hugo there popping up with a goal. Unfortunately, had to sell him there to Spurs before we got to use him too much here with this Benfica team. But it does mean that result that already we have guaranteed a playoff spot. But hopefully we can make it a round of 16 one. Surely, if we pick up that winner over Derry City, it's going to be pretty tough for us to be caught, even if Gladbach do beat us by a decent margin. Our goal differential, it is quite good compared to those teams who do sit on 12 and 11 points. So I'd like to think that we should be making our way straight through to the round of 16, and we'll come back for that come the start of next week, as well as I think the Braga game that we've got there in mid-January, because they're quite decent. It took us a couple of late goals to beat them 2-1 in the first half of the season, and that was at our home stadium. This time away from home. So that actually could be one of our trickier fixtures in the league this season, especially in that back half where we take on a lot of those teams around us away from home. And of course, also, we'll do a transfer update, but obviously, with that budget being reduced, there might not be too much happening in that window if we don't sell anyone with that budget, which has got propped up a little bit with some contract renewals, but still, there's not much we can do at a club like Benfica with a budget like that. But that will do it for today's episode, completing a good first half to our first season here at Benfica. If you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on, as well as I said, until the start of next week for Braga and Gladbach, and also maybe some transfers, but we'll see how things go if some players they do want to leave. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.